Hello and welcome. Today we're going to unwrap the rather long and surprisingly interesting history of a festive favorite, the plum cake. It's a story that spans empires, languages, and even continents, all baked into one rather dense, rich dessert. So let's get started. Right, let's begin with a bit of a puzzle, a paradox that's really at the heart of this whole story. You've almost certainly seen and perhaps tasted one of these cakes packed with fruits and spices. But have you ever stopped to wonder, why on earth is it called a plum cake when, more often than not, there are no actual plums inside it? Well, to find the answer to that, we have to travel back in time. Quite a long way back, in fact, all the way to ancient Rome. It's here that we find the earliest ancestor of the cake we know today, and its purpose, you'll find, was far more practical than it was celebratory. You see, the Romans created this dense, very robust cake. It was made using ingredients like barley, honey, nuts, and a mix of dried fruits and spices. Honestly, it was less of a dessert and much more like something we might call an energy bar today, a really compact and durable source of sustenance. And what's really key to understand about this early version isn't so much the taste, but its main virtue, its durability. It was valued for its incredibly long shelf life, which made it the perfect provision for soldiers on long campaigns or for anyone undertaking a long journey. It was simply a reliable source of energy that wouldn't spoil. Right, let's fast forward several centuries, shall we? We arrive now in medieval England. At this point, the recipe itself begins to change, but, more importantly for our central question, the language surrounding it changes too, and this leads to the rather delicious confusion that we still have today. Now, while some very early recipes might have included fresh fruits, perhaps even plums, the medieval standards shifted quite significantly. As you can see, fresh fruits largely fell out of favor. Instead, dried varieties like raisins, currants, and sultanas became the essential ingredients for the bake that was being called a plum cake. And right here, this is the solution to our mystery. You see, in medieval England, the word plum was simply a catch-all term. It meant any kind of dried fruit. So it didn't refer specifically to the fruit from a plum tree, but to things like raisins or currants. So a cake that was full of raisins was quite literally a plum cake, and the name just stuck, even as our language moved on. So let's just quickly recap the journey so far. It all began as a practical staple for the Romans. Then it became a medieval cake, named after an old, now obsolete, term for dried fruit. By the 18th century, it was well on its way to becoming the festive tradition we recognize, just before it started its journey around the world. So let's look a bit more closely at that festive transformation. This is really the period when the plum cake cemented its place as a symbol of holiday celebration, and especially of Christmas. During this era, the cake became much richer, far more indulgent, and completely intertwined with festive gatherings. It really made the leap from being a simple year-round bake to becoming the absolute centerpiece of the Christmas table in Britain, and soon after, beyond. A really key development here was the addition of spirits, things like rum or brandy. Now, this served two very important functions. Firstly, in a nod back to its Roman roots, the alcohol acted as an excellent preservative, which meant the cake could be made well in advance and stored for weeks. And secondly, of course, it added a wonderful new depth of rich, complex flavor. Now, as the cake's popularity grew in Britain, so did its reach. During the colonial period, this very British tradition was exported across the globe, and it was soon adopted and, just as importantly, adapted by all sorts of new cultures. A perfect example of this is India. British officials and settlers who went there brought the plum cake recipe with them, and before long, it became a cherished part of the Christmas festivities there too. But what's fascinating is that the recipe wasn't just copied, it was transformed. In India, local variations began to emerge that incorporated ingredients that were readily available. You'd find cashews added for texture, unique regional spices creating entirely new flavor profiles, and often a dark caramel used to give the cake its signature deep, rich color. So as we bring our journey to a close, it becomes pretty clear that this cake is far more than just a simple dessert. It is, in fact, a living piece of culinary history. From Britain to India and all across the world, the plum cake is still a beloved festive tradition. Whether it's dense and dark with brandy or lighter and spiced with local flavors, it continues to be a real symbol of celebration and of togetherness. So ultimately, every slice of plum cake really does contain a story. It's a story of Roman pragmatism, of medieval linguistics, and of global cultural exchange. It's a delicious record of how food travels and transforms over time. So the next time you enjoy a piece, you'll know that you are, in fact, tasting thousands of years of history.